what the fuck is float? Here's our overview for today. We're going to talk about low versus medium versus high float. What float is the best? That's going to be more of an opinion piece.
So float.
Yes, talk float. No root beer. Float is just the number of shares that a company has to trade that can be publicly traded. Float is simply calculated by subtracting any restricted shares from all outstanding shares, which just essentially means refer back to line one. It's all of the shares that can be publicly traded right now. And float is generally referred to in three levels: low, medium, and high. So low float stocks have limited shares, low liquidity. This is your pennies. This is your $8 a share. This is your $14 a share.
Generally lower market cap companies.
Yes, lower market cap, and while share price does not directly pertain to float, it does generally go hand in hand with that low volume, low liquidity type of deal. So this was the hardest one to find well-known companies that even I had heard of before. And then also through Coca-Cola Consolidated on there, not to be confused with ticker KO, the Coca-Cola Company, which is certainly medium to high float. Coca-Cola Consolidated, ticker Coke, which I've never traded myself before, but it exists and it is low float. And then also Dillard's, which everyone knows Dillard's. You have a Dillard's that's failing in your local mall right now. Like medium float. This is moderate shares, moderate liquidity. You're starting to get into some mainstream stocks here. And options trading sort of becomes viable to medium float. It goes up and down. It's on the higher end of medium float, where there's more high end of moderate liquidity, I should say. That's where options trading is going to be a bit more viable. You're going to find some good EV. Or EV, I'm talking about betting, IV rather, yeah. So few well-known medium float companies: Carnival Corporation, that's Carnival Cruises; Altria Group, Fox Corporation. These are all S&P 500 companies that could be categorized as medium float, and yeah, it's towards the top end of medium float. You can do some options trading. You can do some swing trading and other things on towards the lower end of medium float. But there's not going to be much day trading to be done down there. It depends on IV and it depends on volume that day. Certainly, I've traded options on Carnival before. I've certainly traded options on Altria before. Don't know about Fox. I think they have weird expirations, if I remember correctly. It's a lot more spaced out.
I've tried to trade options on low float when I first started way back in the day, and I did it, but it sucks. It's not. Yeah,
I shouldn't say it's not viable. I mean, it is doable. But when you get into low float, and especially if you start to get into super low float into $1 and $2 a share, it almost just makes more sense to start loading 100 shares than to take an options contract, because it's going to be the same price as an options contract, and a 2-cent move on a $1 stock is just going to be a 2% move for your $100 position if you have 100 shares of it.
Yeah,
that starts to get a little weird down there at the bottom. But medium options trading comes into play. That's what we like. And high float is the easiest. High shares, high liquidity. This is all your big players. This is all the stocks that somebody who may not even be interested in the stock market at all is going to be aware of. Options trading is going to almost always be viable on high float stocks: Apple, Nvidia, Walmart, Netflix, Google. I mean, the list goes on. This is all your big players. Actually was going to list Google, but I didn't want to have to put Alphabet. Oh, my bad. I didn't want to have to put Alphabet Corporation, parentheses, Google. So yeah, now that we have established low versus medium versus high, a few stocks that fall into each to give everybody a better idea, we can talk about which float is best. And gotcha, it depends on your trading style.
It's completely subjective.
It is completely subjective for sure. There is no definite best float. You got to decide what's best for you. The more aggressive and speculative you are, the more you're probably going to lean towards high float stocks, especially if you like options trading. High float stocks are going to kind of be your main game. They have more volume, they have high IV, they have solid moves on a day-to-day basis. They have, especially compared to low float stocks, they have candles that connect to one another. Can you believe that? So yeah, if you're a little more aggressive like myself, you're probably going to lean high float. Medium float, you can day trade some options on the higher end of medium float. You can swing trade pretty much all medium float stocks. They're going to be swing tradable. And I should always say that I'm speaking in an options context pretty much always. Aside from low float, where you might want to load some shares, talking in an options context. And low float stocks complement long-term speculation, investment into small companies with a chance to grow, or just straight up gambles. I know many people who play pennies like roulette, and just once a year you catch one that goes 1 to 5, and it makes up for all the other ones that you lost 20% on, little by little by little. If there's no volume and you don't, at least for me, if you don't have to like have, be checking a position once an hour ish to make sure that you're not totally fucked, where's the fun in that? I want to be scared. All right. I want to be worried all day. And it also is really IV dependent. If you wind up with IV premium on stuff, I mean, like Tesla, even back before, I mean, it was well over 1,000 a share at one point pre-split, but even before that, just in the run up, just the amount of chop that Tesla has every day keeps those premiums so high. And then share price is also an influencer as well. I've never been able to trade fucking Chipotle options ever because they're always too expensive. And I'm happy that split is coming. Maybe I can finally options trade.
Options trade some Chipotle.
Yeah, exactly. I want options trade. I'm long black beans, bro. I'm long salsa.